Hi! I finally get to test and to review the Fujinon 33mm f1.4. I was very excited to review this lens because when it was announced, I thought, wow, this is very close to the already loved 35mm f1.4, so I figured this must be a very good lens. Now, how good is this lens compared to the already existing 35mm f1.4? It is only 2mm difference after all, and in terms of bokeh and depth of field, we're talking f1.4 maximum aperture, which is the same. So is it any better? Let's start off with the weight. The 33mm f1.4 weighs 370 grams roughly versus 96 grams for the 35mm f1.4. So we're talking almost double the weight. Now, in real life, if I take them side by side, yes, this one is heavy, but I don't notice that much of a difference, and actually it doesn't feel bad or unbalanced when I have it on my camera. Now, in terms of length, the 33mm f1.4 measures 73.5 millimeters versus 55 millimeters for the 35mm version. So it's a difference of almost 2 centimeters, which is not little, but at the same time, look, I mean, it's not huge either. It's okay. This lens is pretty much future-proof. What do I mean by that? You can see based on the rendition, the optics, the quality, that it is not anymore made for the original 16 megapixels that we used to have on the X-T1, X-T10 and so forth when this lens came out. So this looks like we're gonna get some very, very nice sensors with a lot of megapixels coming soon. So let's see what the future holds. Now the 33mm f1.4 is an equivalent for full frame of 49.5 millimeters, and the 35mm is an equivalent of 52.5 millimeters. So it is a difference of 2 millimeters really, if you compare this to a full frame equivalent. So if you time it by a crop factor of 1.5, which means that this new lens is closer to what a 50mm, a real 50mm on full frame would look like. In terms of optics and elements, we're talking 15 optical elements in 10 groups for the 33mm and 8 elements in 6 groups for the 35mm. That is almost double the elements and groups, which basically means that optically speaking, this lens is superior. The focusing motors are way better on this new lens. They're fast and nearly silent, and I mean it. In fact, I decided to do a little test to show you how loud or not loud the motors are. Here you go. There's now an aperture position lock mechanism. This is the one that we find in the GF lenses, where you can actually press and turn to put it on auto mode, so it stays on auto mode and it doesn't come off accidentally. I am, like you know, someone who likes to shoot at a variable aperture. I decide the aperture I want to use no matter what other settings I'm using. The aperture is something that I decide always no matter what, so I don't care about the locking mechanism, but it is good if you're someone who likes to shoot in automatic. I'm going to show you while we're here the sound that it makes, the clicks of the aperture ring. Here you go. So this is a 33mm. And this is the 35mm. So the 33 is a little bit less loose. Obviously, this 35 lens is a little bit older and has been used a lot, but it sounds a little bit different. Yes, this lens is now weather sealed. So for those that love to go in cold weathers, you can go all the way to -10 degrees Celsius for example, astrophotography, for cold winter nights, or for times that you want to go outdoor and it's cold. Or if you want to go in dusty and or humid environments, you can do so without worrying about having elements going into the sensor or into the lens if you have a body that is also weather sealed. It has an all-around metal barrel, like pretty much every single Fuji lens, besides the XC series, which is mostly plastic. But these guys are sturdy, they're built as a tank. I mean, this is not gonna go anywhere, okay? This is actually fully metal and it feels good, Good job, Fuji, like always. Minor detail, I know it's a small detail, but it has a great cap you put the cap on and it just stays in place there. It doesn't move. It's one of those little things that, you know how many times I've lost a cap in my bag or lost it in the house, in the studio, or, you know, because it doesn't clip properly. What comes to mind is the 10-24 f4. That one, the first generation, is horrible. So I'm glad to see that they improved those little caps. It has a plastic hood, like always, which I don't dislike because A, it's cheaper to produce, and B, it doesn't break, it's light, looks good, looks okay, it's fine. By the way, I really like the looks that this lens has with the hood on. It reminds me a little bit of the 50mm f2, and I really like it. It looks a little bit retro, it's actually pretty tiny for what it does. You will hear that sound when you turn them around of something moving inside, a little bit like, you know, those cows that you can turn and you hear a little blop. Well, that's because it's a linear motor LM series lens, which means there's a motor inside. When you plop it to your camera, you turn it on, the motor gets activated. It doesn't do that anymore, but when it's off, it moves a little bit. So that is normal. This lens was made in the Philippines versus the 35mm original version that was made in Japan. Personally, I prefer lenses made in Japan because it's Fuji, Japan, Fuji. I trust that. I also trust Philippines, obviously, because so far all the lenses I had from there were top-notch, same quality as the ones made in Japan, makes literally no difference. The QC line of Fuji is great, so it's just an information for you to know. So in summary, if you like the 35mm or the original one, you're gonna love this guy. This is all great, I love talking specs, but now let's talk about real life usage of this lens. Okay, first off, I did a little photo shoot, very tiny photo shoot with my son in my studio. As you can see in this behind the scenes video, I've used a color checker passport to calibrate the colors. So these photos that you're gonna see now are touched up a little bit in Lightroom. Not much, but I did some editing so that we get the right colors. Here you go. Alright, for this next series of shots, I've used Provia Standard for all my photos. These are straight out of the camera photos. I used an X-T3, the same one, I just swapped the lenses, and this was shot on a tripod for framing purposes. So we're gonna start off showing you how much of a difference it makes when you're using the 35 or the 33 in terms of framing. So you can see those 2mm, how much of a difference they make. Here you go. Alright, on this next series of shots, you will see the 35 and the 33, and you can see the depth of field, and the purpose is to show you how much of a difference it makes. I shot these shots indoor in my studio, as you can see here, the behind the scenes setup. Here you go. As we saw earlier, the 35 is way louder than the 33 in terms of autofocus. Now, how good and fast and snappy is it? So I did a little video here to show you how much snappier the 33 is compared to the 35. And here are now some shots that I took taking a little walk with my son. These are casual, everyday, random shots, if you will. But at least you can see a little bit how they come out straight out of the camera. Most of these shots were not shot wide open. I shot them at 5.6, f4. Some of them are at f1.4, so wide open. But here you go. So in conclusion, which lens is the best? This is a question that I really like to ask. I don't think there's a best lens. I don't think there's a better or worse. I think they both have their charm. They both have their strength and their cons. But I believe if you don't own a 35mm yet and you are thinking to buy a 33, depending if you have to travel lightweight, small package and so forth, I would probably consider getting the new 33mm. But that is up to you. It really depends on a lot of factors. I've told you everything I know about these two lenses, the differences, so now it is up to you to decide what lens is the best for you. Leave a comment in the comment section below to let me know if you own one of these lenses, which one is your favorite, would you exchange the 35 for the 33? I'm curious to know and to find out, and I'll answer you as fast as possible. I see you in my next video, take care and keep shooting.